All right. Calling to order MCDD's board meeting for today, September 22nd. And this is just a reminder that it's being recorded, as the computer announcement just said. And I'll just do a roll call vote. Kenzie?
Present.
And Nikki?
Here.
And then Ken Anderton is here, of course, and I call MCDD to order. And then I just proposed that we added Darian's appointment, right, Wendy?
So the agenda doesn't include Darian's appointment because I wasn't sure when we'd get that letter from the city, but we have that now. And so I believe, Ken, you have a copy of it. If any of the board members would like one, I can email that to you now, but the letter indicates that Darian is now the official representative from the city of Portland.
I'd just say, Wendy, this email it to everyone, but I don't think that should prevent us from voting on it. Darian, you want to give us just a brief overview of who you are and where you work, etc.?
Sure. My name is Darian Santner. I am a natural resource ecologist with City of Portland Bureau of Environmental Services and have been so since spring of 2000. So coming in on 23 years, which is hard to imagine. But most of my job is managing natural area watershed health improvement projects, mostly vegetation related, but I have a part in a lot of the stream enhancement projects that we do and the long-term natural area properties that we own and manage, and then a lot of partnerships with other agencies and private entities and et cetera, et cetera. I've worked on those projects all over the city in those years, but a lot in the Columbia Slough, because that's where we've been the most active over the length of this program. And currently there are four of us that basically do what I do. We split up the geography. So currently most of the projects I manage are from 33rd east to Gresham on the Columbia Slough and then along the main stem Willamette. But I also have a smattering of projects in Forest Park area, Johnson Creek, and some random other spots. And over the years, I've worked on and managed a number of projects kind of all up and down the slough. And I've worked with the drainage district a lot over the years, districts and staff. Let's see, other than that, I've been a Portlander my whole life. I do a lot of nature stuff and outdoor stuff outside of work, including boating on our waterways. So yeah, is that good?
That's perfect. Thanks, Darian. Any questions about Darian? All right, we're just happy to have you, and we'll miss Nancy a lot, but I get to see her over at the urban board, so I'll bug her there. What is the process? Do we just call for a vote?
Yes, you can move to vote him in, and then once he's voted in, he'll have to do the notary and the oath of office, and I think Wendy can provide you with that information. Welcome, Darian.
Thanks.
All right, I'll take a motion to appoint Darian to the City of Portland seat on the MCDD board.
I'm going to do that. I move to appoint Darian Santner as to the MCDD board.
Do I have a second?
I second. This is Kenzie.
And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, welcome aboard. We'll get you out that oath of office. So you can't vote today, but certainly can give, listen in and give us input the next board meeting. And we'll get you all set up to go. All right. Moving on here. We have the fixed billing, I think, is next, if I'm not mistaken. Lori, you're up.
I'm up, and I am not going to pull up my slides for this meeting. There is a wealth of information in the packet about the fixed fee calculation, questions and answers, just a lot of information to support each of our district boards with understanding what we were proposing for them. And I have walked them through all of that data this week, and I'm pleased to report that all 3 districts have approved that change in billing. So at this point, we're just asking the MCDD board members if they would be willing to move forward. There is a couple of things I wanted to note. We did have one technical issue with the IGA that we're revising, and Wendy can put up the language for you. The districts had asked for an express reversion clause so that if they got into this fixed billing process and decided that they didn't like it, that they could get themselves out of it and be direct charged for our services again, should they choose to do that. So we had that in the Q&A document, but I missed putting it in the red line IGAs. So we'll be adding that to the IGAs, and Wendy has just posted the information that you'll need should you make the decision to move forward with adopting this resolution. I'm happy to answer any questions if you had questions about that pile of information that I included in your packet. Otherwise, I'll just hand it back to you, Ken.
All right. Yeah, I've got to hear it just a couple hours ago. So the SDIC board. Any questions before we entertain a motion on the fixed billing item?
One question with that change, is that going to require that our staff tracks their time in the event that you have to be like prepared? Or?
Sorry.
It would not be, we would not agree to allow them to retroactively change it because we will not be tracking time. So there won't be any information available to do that billing for them. It would have to be on a go forward basis, and how we had envisioned it is they take a look at the IGA once a year when they look at Appendix B and look at those rates that we use for the direct charge services. And it would be at that point, I think, where the conversation would happen if they decided that they we're not comfortable with the fixed fee anymore. We're really hopeful with the 3 years worth of amounts that we put in there, that consistency and just that knowledge of what the numbers are will help them to continue to be confident with this new billing process so that we don't have to revert back. But if we do, it would have to be on a go forward basis.
Good question.
Yeah, very good question. And Hong will make sure the language covers that.
Yeah,
right, Hong?
I mean, the state of the matter is we had already had Pen 1 and Pen 2 approving without the need for the express reversion clause. The idea to revert back to direct billing was in the question and answer. So there was a contemplation for it. It was just a drafting error that I should have caught, wasn't in the IGA. So it's not going to be a significant change to the proposal. And it's what I will be conveying to Pen 1 and Pen 2, that the change is immaterial. But I will have a discussion with the board presidents about that.
All right, good question, Nikki. Because what we're trying to do is make it a lot more streamlined, and we'd have to duplicate work. So, all right, I think we're ready to entertain a motion. I believe Wendy has put the motion that is revised in the chat. If I could get a motion from one of the board members.
Sure, I can do that. I move to adopt resolution number 2022-0901, amending the district service IGA with SDIC, Pen 1 and Pen 2, provided that the IGA is revised to include the express reversion clause.
And do I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Nikki seconds. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right, motion passes, or resolution passes. And now, Wendy, we're going to skip item C, the PMLS real estate presentation for a later date.
I appreciate Mark's flexibility. There is information in your packet, and please, if you'd like to have any questions about the topic prior to your October meeting, please reach out to Mark.
Yeah, I think it's an important presentation, but I think having a little more time would be helpful and more time to study it. Thank you, Mark. I got to see it in the SDIC round and appreciate the thoroughness of it. And then item D, which is also the gate tower function, and we're still doing that one, right, Wendy? Okay, Mark, you're up again.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you everyone for this opportunity to talk about this, give you a little bit of background. As I said this morning to SDIC, when I heard that you were discussing this later matter, I thought it was pretty good timing that we just concluded this alternatives analysis just ahead of this, just to give you, a little bit more information about the project itself. And some background for those of you who haven't maybe had the had much dealings with this sort of infamous structure in the past. So with that, I will move into it. I think most of you hopefully will recognize this. This is the structure that we're talking about. I'm going to give you a little bit of background, just again to make sure that those who aren't as familiar with the inner workings have a basis for what they're about to hear. And we'll go through the alternatives analysis and findings briefly. I will say that most of the heart of this presentation is in the memo, so this is more of a chance to answer any questions and fill in any gaps that I might have left, hopefully none, but anything I left out of the memo. And then talk about next steps for the districts, as well as next steps for Levy Ready Columbia, since they are the Levy Ready Columbia IGA board is funding the design work, but we have a little bit to do before we get there. Broad brush, this is the drainage area that contributes to flow through on an operational typical basis through the gate tower structure and into SDIC. It's primarily the Blue Lake Basin, Blue Lake Park. There are some residential homes, and of course the Portland Wellfield assets that all rely on water to get out of this basin and into SDIC for external pumping into Salmon Creek and the Columbia River. This is the location of the structure itself, just south of Chinook Landing. The gate tower structure itself is on the western side. And this is sort of schematic from the original core drawings. This shows the components. The gate tower is part of a system. The gate tower itself is on the western side. Never mind that walkway scaffolding that was in the original core plans to facilitate easier operation. We don't really know why it wasn't built. But the structure was typically operated by climbing up the tower and operating the valve up above, and that was to allow operation of the valve during any kind of flooding situation on the west side. The valves themselves are at the bottom. There are two slide gates that close off the ends of the two 42-inch corrugated metal pipe culverts. Those culverts go all the way through the levee to the other side. On the east side, there are two flap gates, which are just like you'd think, just two large, very heavy flaps that allow passively allow the flow to force its way through into SDIC, but passively allows the system to be shut off should there be flooding on the SDIC side. And basically, the flooding closes it shut and are passively closed. So different ways of operating that. Currently, the flap valves have been removed due to excess sedimentation on the SDIC side in what we call No Name Creek. So it just prevented them from opening. So we removed them 2015 on the western. So on the western side, the gate tower itself is stuck in the open position. The culverts are clogged, but they do allow flow through. So it has not been a significant operational issue. Usually the water is just moving through during the rainy season. gonna move through. I think I covered all that, and we have very little. We have a little bit of time here. I want to get to the good stuff. So the project was identified in the Levy Ready Columbia IGA agreement as one of the critical recertification projects. It is out of compliance with the Corps O&M manual due to the operability issues that I just mentioned. We did attempt to inspect the culverts, but due to safety concerns, because the tower itself is structurally potentially a structural hazard, and is the divers didn't complete their work. So it is one of 3 non-PMLS projects moving forward, so that we can show FEMA we're diligently working towards projects that aren't in the PMLS. And the reason that it's not in the PMLS is twofold. The Corps' policy doesn't allow them to spend money on structures they deem as deferred maintenance, and so that's one reason. The other reason being that the Corps' final alternative focused on the outer perimeter levee, and the projects that were on the cross levees were removed. Those were an alternative 4, and those didn't move forward because the Corps felt it was more beneficial to invest on strengthening the outer perimeter per the final plan. Levy Ready Columbia IGA board has been supportive of funding the recertification designs. And so in moving forward, we looked at the information provided in MCDD and SDIC drainage master plans to help inform our request for proposal for design services. And we realized there were still some gaps that we needed to cover, a little bit more information from a holistic perspective, rather than from the perspective of one district versus the other. And so an alternatives analysis was contracted to cover down on those gaps and to evaluate the pros and cons, as well as the costs, more narrowly, to inform which alternatives we would move forward with in 30% design. So there's a list of 3 general alternatives, and each of those have sort of 2 various options. And if you consider the pipe condition, then there's actually some sub options below that. So, but essentially it's whether we repair the existing structures, meaning the gate tower and the pipe, replace the existing structures, or previous discussion had occurred surrounding the decommissioning of the structures and routing that flow out of MCDD East, the Blue Lake Basin, in a different way, either through Fairview Creek or directly through the Columbia to the north, or into Salmon Creek into the Columbia to the north. And some of these options have not been costed out or really evaluated closely. So this study does inform that. There's a lot of detail in the report if you have an interest in learning more. So as I said before, big design problem that was identified in the study was that the slide gates and the flap valves were inoperable or removed. The gate tower itself is unsafe and shouldn't be rehabilitated. And ESA highly recommended that in order to come up with a better RFP, that we inspect the culverts to inform a design approach. So we understand whether the culverts are in good condition, while balancing that with the fact that they're at the end of their design life for that material, or if we do a rehabilitation of those pipes by slip lining them. And then the third option for the pipes is to do an open cut and just physically remove the pipes and replace them, so that we have a new life cycle moving forward. The other problem that was identified was that sedimentation that I spoke to earlier. There's a tremendous amount of sedimentation. It's actually above the elevation of the pipe outlet. And so obviously if we clean and inspect those pipes, then if we don't clear that out, obviously we'll improve the flow through that area regardless. But if we don't clear it out, then after cleaning the pipes, then it could result in back water and sedimentation of that material on the east side into the pipe. And So that is another design issue. ESA brought in some other contractors to help them do some cost estimates on the work required in the planning level. There is an entire array in the report, which we'll be sharing after this meeting, that details cost ranges. There's high and low estimates, and there is a difference in the low estimate on each of these line items from your memo. In hindsight, we considered that we used the actual expected cost rather than the low cost that ESA provided, which is just basically reducing these costs by 40%. So we have a sort of a realistic option and a high-end option. And so some of those costs are detailed here. You can see that obviously it's more expensive to replace the culverts via open cut. And then the most expensive range of options is to decommission the pipe, because it will involve new pump stations, or a new pump station, and everything that entails, getting the flow out of the system. Which one of the biggest hurdles is finding a good alignment, the expense of that alignment, and permitting those new options. ESA also did upon our request, did a life cycle cost of the alternative. So there's two tables in the report, and one difference is just design construction, and the other is looking at the life cycle. So these are after we completed the costs and looked at the pros and cons, all those things were put into a scoring criteria. These are the various factors that were looked at, everything from just pure cost of completing the various alternatives to constructability, permitting, the environmental impacts, Corps' likelihood to approve them, and then as well as safety, and then stakeholder and public concerns. I'll show you the chart in just a moment, which is in the report, but the gate, with respect to the gate tower, the preferred alternative is alternative 4, which would involve the replacement of the structures with a slide gate in the middle of the levee, which is very similar to the MCDD cross levee valve at 142nd Avenue. That is also provides ease of operation, safety of operation during a flood. You don't have to get into a boat to climb up a structure, and a number of other factors. Of course, then we looked at the pipes for each alternative, and I provided some ranges for slip lining the culverts, which is likely. The culverts may be in okay condition due to being submerged and not being able to oxidize too much, but we have no idea what they look like, and they are at the end of their life cycle, so it is likely that they need some rehabilitation. If the culverts are deflected at all, collapsed or deflected, then open cut excavation may be necessary. Here's the scoring table and the various, like a high-level summary of the various alternatives. Again, this is all greatly detailed in the report. And then these are these are all the various scorings. You can see that alternative 4 ranks highest at 34 points. Alternative 2, which is to replace the existing tower and gates sort of in kind, is just below that. And then a little more distant alternative is to repair the gates and replace the tower. And then at the very bottom of the results are the decommissioning and pump station alternatives, not just due to cost, but due to other factors as well. So again, this is sort of synopsizing what I just cited. Again, all this is in your memo, and I want to give us time to discuss and ask questions. So I'm going to talk about the next steps that we've proposed. The first step, as I alluded to, is to clean and inspect the pipe. And in order to do that effectively, also the dredging of No Name Creek in SDIC is necessary. This 2,000 cubic yard option is probably a low-end option. It just gets, it provides minimal dredging to clear a low flow channel that is at or below the outlet of the pipe, so that there is no back flushing of sediment, and so we have efficient flow through that pipe. That work could be completed in-house, and that work has been budgeted in existing SDIC budgets. We couldn't complete that over the winter. Many of you are aware there's in-water work periods, and this is a perennial channel, so we have to wait until late spring, early summer, when flows and levels are low enough, and we have an in-season work period, so we can be permitted to do the work. Next is the cleaning and CCTV inspection of the twin culverts. We may also do LiDAR to be able to check the deflection of the pipe. This involves placing of cofferdams, and that's what drives the price up to $150,000, along with some of the associated permitting for that dredging and disposal work for the material that's in the pipe. So this work requires funding from the drainage districts because it is deferred maintenance, and so LRC not necessarily agreed to pick up the tab for that. And once we obtain that information, then we'll be able to re-rack all the information that's in the report. We may re-rack those scoring criteria based on what we find, and we will put forward a proposal for replacement of the pipe or rehabilitation, as well as the other structures. And Levy Ready Columbia will receive a proposal for final approval of design funding, and they'll be able to make some decisions about the preferred alternatives that they choose to move forward with after seeing the technical recommendations. And then what follows, obviously, is we'll do a design phase. I want to add that we have put in placeholders to apply for the Business Oregon State Levy Grant funds. And so the Levy Ready Columbia Partnership would cover the local cost share, but the bulk would be paid for by Business Oregon should we receive those grants. And then finally, this is an estimate. With everything goes smoothly, this is our timeline to bid and construct the actual project, and then have a recertification ready project behind us. Okay, so that was a lot of information, very quick, but happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions from the board? This one seems like it's up Nikki's alley.
I don't have any questions.
Great.
Yeah, I believe the tough ones are coming in executive session. So
Just one quick question for me. As far as the downstream impacts of the decision here, there's no, you've captured all of the kind of cost differentiation between these options. There's no downstream effects of how cost of PMLS would be affected by the decision made here, correct? Is that clear?
Yeah, there wouldn't be any unintended consequences. Fortunately, I mean, a good thing is cleaning out the sediment, for instance, and just making this more operable would mean there's less potential sediment down in the forebay for SDIC when we go to do those improvements. But no, I think if I answer your question, I get it correctly. I don't anticipate anything affecting PMLS.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, now, any other questions? Oh, we have Mark.
I do just think of, did we ever decide who owns this, whether it's SDIC or MCDD or shared?
Did you ask that? We're gonna discuss that soon.
Oh, okay.
Great segue.
Yeah, perfect segue. So
killing it with the questions today, Nikki.
We're going to transition, if I am reading the agenda right, Wendy, into executive session to discuss the gate tower. And pursuant to ORS 40.225, ORS 192.35598, and 192.6602F, to consider confidential legal advice and attorney-client communication. Anything else I need to say, Hong? All right, we're now in executive session.
So what I'm gonna do is pause the recording and we're gonna go into a breakout room for privacy. So hold on.
Right, returning back to regular session after going into executive session. I wanted to, for the record, just wanted to indicate that Corky Collier has joined us on the call, on the meeting. And for item number F that's on the agenda, the gate tower ownership, we are going to push that to the next meeting. Is everyone okay with that? Okay, and that way Darian can vote on this issue, and Corky can get caught up on it.
So I'll just add, if I may, Ken. So we have a consultant joining us at 2:30 to do the SDAO board evaluation. And so we are ahead of schedule because we skipped the one agenda item. So at the board's discretion, we can ask Mark to do a short presentation on PMLS real estate, or we can take a longer break, or I can try and get the consultants to see if he can join us earlier.
Why don't Mark get started on the presentation and then see if you can get the consultant? I do have to go to pick up my daughter at 3, so I'd have to join by phone. So if we can just get through that before then, it'd be amazing.
Well, I would suggest that I call the consultant and see if we can get him on right now and not have Mark get started. If that's all right. If you want to just
yeah, let's take a
give me
5-minute break. Be back at 2:12.
Hey, Mark, really
Howdy.
appreciate your flexibility.
That's good. And since the board chair needs to leave, I'd propose we just keep going in his absence, if that's all
Okay.
right. And then we'll get it done. I mean, it's not essential that everybody be there for the entire duration, and the fact that he can be here for the first half of it is a huge benefit. So let's just go with it.
Hey, Mark, thank you. This school schedule is throwing me off a bit here. Normally she's out at 3:30, but today she told me, oh, by the way, Dad, I'm out at 3.
Oh, it's
So-
early
Surprise.
release. It's early release, isn't it, Ken? Oh
Yeah.
my, I will be expecting mine then at the same time.
It is.
Oh, wow, okay.
And no PPS tomorrow. So if anyone's in PPS, kids aren't there tomorrow. Teachers are.
So Wendy,
what-
this is where I can back out. I don't need to be
Yeah, I
here.
just wanted to let all the MCDD staff know that the subsequent board evaluation is just a conversation between the consultant and the members. And so we invite you to drop off. I believe that
Wendy,
Bill is going to join us.
before Mark and I drop off, can we just check something with the board? Is that okay? As far as an assumption. So wanted to see if it's okay to postpone the real estate presentation until the November meeting. You already have a gap analysis on your agenda. And so our request would be to add a little bit more time so we can review these things that Mark was going to present today. And then also to have Mark, since you had the memo, to have Mark share the PowerPoint presentation that he was going to share today. And that way there isn't the time constraint that you currently have. So did I get that right, Mark and Wendy? So just asking the board to entertain that request.
I think it makes sense to me. Any other concerns?
So Mark will
Alright.
share that presentation with Wendy and she'll get that out to the board, and MCDD staff will drop off.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, all.
Ability today. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.